Hey, I'm Matt Montgomery, and he's Paul MeatSauce Lambert. Paul, it's been a year and a half since we've been on air together, but we're back, baby.
We are. I'm excited to be here. It's a great time. Good times, great oldies. That might be a slogan I just ripped off, but who cares? We'll go with it.
Great oldies. We're not that old.
Well, I feel old.
You look great, though. Has anything, it seems like something's changed. I'm not sure. I can't put my finger on it.
I put on 60 pounds.
Oh, but other than that. So we got our new show. We're here on the CW. When we got this show, friends were trying to give us tips of what we could do to make this show successful. And here at the CW, somebody said, you guys should put like a monkey in a cage and pretend he's your weatherman. But I said, Fox 9's already done that with Steve Frazier, so that joke's been had. So
Zing.
Zing. I told him, I promised Steve I was going to rip him in our very first segment. So Steve, I pulled it off. MeatSauce Monty starts right now. See, I promised him I'd rip him, and I did. Our very first joke right out of the gate.
We made it.
We
first
did it.
Joke so far, so good. There'll be a lot of firsts today. That one so far, I'll probably mess up along the way, but I'm just concentrating on standing still is all I'm doing.
That's right.
I know where I'm supposed to be, and I'm not going to sway back and
get
forth.
Your shoulders facing the camera a little bit that way. There you go.
Perfect.
All right, so as you can see that column there on the side, we're going to talk All-Star Game. It happened this last week. It had the worst TV ratings in Major League Baseball All-Star Game history. It only drew 8.71 million. That's down 20% viewership from last year alone. Sauce, your take on the All-Star Game and what they have to do to save it.
I can't tell you the last time I actually watched an All-Star Game. It may have been when I was probably in 4th or 5th grade, so actually I can tell you the last time, but it's just not an event anymore. Nobody watches it. Nobody goes out of their way to watch it. You can't name any of the players. We did a bit on the Power Trip where we were talking about the guys in the Home Run Derby.
Sure.
There's 2 of them we knew. I mean, Carlos Stanton and then another guy, but that's it. You don't know who these players are anymore.
And the other guy.
Right, and the other guy, and the other guy, and the other guy, because there's 8 of them. Baseball, I hate to say it because I grew up playing it. It's a fun game. It's just kind of, I think people are kind of realizing it's too long and it's just kind of boring. And the All-Star games are boring. Play it after the season. Play it somewhere tropical. Play it in Miami.
But if they do
Give
it after
the guys
the season,
incentive.
See, they're trying to incentivize it with the home field advantage, whatever, American League or National League if they win. American League wins, so whoever represents gets home field. They try to make it worth something, but it still seems to be missing. Obviously, the fans aren't responding through the TV.
Yeah, I think it's summer. We have plenty of things to do. We have a ton of things to watch. We have all kinds of options to watch things. We have, MeatSauce and Monty to prep for. We're not going to watch a stupid All-Star game. I'm done with it. I can't watch it. I haven't watched it in 25 years. It's boring. And the guys look cool in their uniforms and all their sweet shoes, which I'm totally into. I may have a borderline foot fetish, but probably shouldn't admit that on TV.
I was going to say, thanks for revealing that in our first episode.
Right.
We won't get any tweets or anything about that.
I can't do it anymore. I don't like watching it.
Okay.
It's boring.
All right. It's boring. You want to move on.
Right.
Rod Carew, the American League Batter of the Year, the award has been named after him, and for the National League, Tony Gwynn. The All-Star Game was in San Diego, so it was fitting for the Padres. Do you think that means anything, or are the awards still just going to be known as winning the batting title?
Well, I think this is a good move by Major League Baseball. When you think about it, Tony Gwynn's like a career .332 hitter. That's incredible how good of a hitter he is. I think baseball got that right. Tony Gwynn, you and I growing up, I loved Tony Gwynn. Rod Carew was great. You give these kind of like hockey does with some of the trophies they have. Right. You give it a name, kind of add something more to it. Yeah, I think it's a good move by them.
All right, let's talk a little bit more now about the Twins. This last week marked the 20th anniversary of Kirby Puckett retiring from baseball. And they inducted Torrey Hunter into the Twins Hall of Fame. First, what's your favorite Kirby moment? And can you put Torrey and Kirby in the same classification as center fielders for the Twins?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you prepared for this because I, of course, did not. The greatest Kirby Puckett moment is simple. It's the Game 6 of the World Series, which
you can't say anything else.
I happened to be there. I'll never forget. I'll quickly tell you. My dad.
You were like 8?
I was 10. 9, 10, doesn't matter. Yeah, I was 9. It was just right after my 9th birthday.
Somewhere in between.
Doesn't matter. Somewhere in between. My dad told me that he got tickets. His secretary's dad won them. They couldn't go. So my dad's like, well, we're going. And it was in the Metrodome, obviously. But you remember before when they didn't have the 2 screens up? When they only had one on like the right field side?
Yeah.
So you couldn't see the replays behind us. So we brought a TV, like one of those mini TVs to watch the replays. I'll never forget that catch, and I'll never forget as long as I live, right before Kirby Puckett came up in that 10th inning, my dad turned to me and said, one of them, it was Kirby, Chili, and I think Pedro Munoz, maybe, but one of these two was going to end this game, and Puckett crushed it, and that's one of the greatest moments. Torrey Hunter, same kind of thing. Great guy off the field. I was a big fan. I've gotten to meet him a couple times. Really nice guy. He saved Twins baseball, kind of. I mean, they were going to contract that team.
Right.
So both of them, great baseball players. Great, kids loved them. Two of the most famous Minnesota Twins of all time.
Right. So going back to Kirby, did you ever get to see the TV copy? Then obviously the Joe Buck, we'll see you tomorrow night.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've watched that so many times. And the one thing is weird that I remember is right after the game, my dad and I went to Byerly's restaurant and got blueberry pie.
That's what you remember is the food.
Yeah, of course.
I love it.
I look like that one girl from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that turns into a big blueberry right now in this shirt.
Olive, you're turning.
Yeah,
see,
right.
Movie lines.
Yeah,
we got
right.
Let's move on to the Vikings now a little bit while we can. So they're going to report to training camp on July 28th. You're going to be there. What do you think is the biggest story that people are going to be looking for at the end of the month when they report to Mankato?
Well, another great question. We brought this up the other day on the Saturdays with Sauce that I do with AJ, and AJ kind of brought it up, and he was right. I think it's Blair Walsh.
Really?
Because it is the quarterback, but the quarterback's always the key question mark because if you got a good one, it's the health of the quarterback. If you got a bad one, it's him improving. If you got a so-so one, you want to make him better. So it's mostly always the quarterback. But we got to keep in mind that it was 11 months ago, 13 months ago, when we were sitting here going, if Blair Walsh misses this kick in a preseason game, they might have to move on from him. Blair Walsh is a huge question mark because he's still got to come out. He's still got to kick some field goals. And if he has a rough start like he has in the past, it may be bad. I mean, he had a great stretch there, but if he comes out and he's 2 for 6 or 3 for 7 in preseason, it could be a long off season preseason because they might have to think something if he comes out with the David Duval yips.
The yips. It's interesting that you say. I don't think special teams is necessarily the biggest story. I think it's going to be the wide receiving core because I think Teddy is almost getting a free pass. That people are saying, obviously the quarterback is the biggest story, but they're assuming that with the offensive line being retooled, that he's going to have more time. Everybody's saying this is going to be the step up. I think he needs to find who is his guy, who is his number one receiver. I think that is what the preseason.
You hope it's Stephon Diggs. You hope Diggs.
Well, but he disappeared at the end.
Yeah, you hope he can maybe do play well the whole season. And if Laquan Treadwell's who they think he is, we might not have a problem at all.
All right, ESPN did a study. They call it the Future Power Rankings. And these guys basically pulled and they looked into the next 3 seasons and they had all these different categories. The Vikings came out 8th in the NFL, which seems to be pretty good. It means you're playoff bound.
Maybe one Super Bowl in the next 3 years, something like that.
Hopefully, But the category that they were scored the highest on was coaching. What's your reaction to that? And do you think that's a nod towards Mike Zimmer or that they're missing out on Adrian Peterson, Teddy in the next 3 seasons?
I don't know. I think the thing that you always hear about the Minnesota Vikings is the stability with the coaching staff and how these guys, and you can't compare them because one of them's won multiple championships and one of them as a head coach hasn't won any. But you always seem to get the comparison to Greg Popovich where he's kind of rough, but they all love him. And as we saw with Popovich and Tim Duncan, he loves the players. I think Mike Zimmer's the same way. I think these guys love playing for him. He's kind of like a dad to them where he's, he'll tell them how it is, but then at the end of the day, he loves them. He stands up for them. I mean, remember last year.
He's great with the local media, too. He comes up and says what he's thinking and is very respectful. I mean,
correct.
Seems
and
like
then
a great guy.
In that Rams game where Teddy got that late hit, and he was furious. And he said, if this was a street, we would have had a street fight. If we were out in public, we would have had a street fight. And you got to love that. You got to love a coach that stands up for his players, and I think that's one of the reasons why it ranks so highly.
All right, time for us to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little Wolves. And if you look over to that bar, there might be a little drinks going on later. MeatSauce Monty. Really? Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Your hair lasted for the first segment. It's still there. Look at that. All right, we're going to talk a little bit of Lynx. They were in the headlines this last week due to the jersey or the shirt that they wore for the warm-ups, and the cops walking out, and Lieutenant Bob Kroll saying that they're a pathetic draw. And then it got a little bit more heated when Mayor Betsy Hodges said that jackass remarks comment. We're not going to talk a ton of news on this show, but this is something that deserves talking. What's your reaction to the Lynx, and then how the situation played out after that?
I love what the Lynx did. I love a lot of them down there. They're all great. They're great people. Do what you want to do. That's the beauty of the world we live in and the country we live in. Speak your mind. If people get upset about it, then you're doing something right. If people were like, oh, okay, but people get upset about it, you're doing something right. If you don't have any enemies, I think as Churchill once said, then you're not doing anything right. You got to have people who disagree with you.
A little bit of history from MeatSauce. This is very interesting.
I stole that from Dan Barrero's Twitter account. But
don't give him credit. He's on a different TV station.
You gave the one guy credit to start the show.
That's because I was going to rip him. You just gave him credit. There's a big difference there.
Well, anyhow.
So rip him later.
Right, but yeah. Well, so I think it's great, and if people got a problem with it, fine. But I don't know. I mean, going after them as like a brand is it's a cheap shot by that guy. That's just a cheap shot.
Agreed.
And don't do that. Like, they're good people. Right. They have every right to do what they want. I mean, and I think I'm all for what they did. I think it also had a lot to do with a slow news cycle because it was right in the middle of the All-Star game. Yeah. And what they did is the right thing, but it shouldn't have blown up like it did. I mean, they were doing what they should have done. But if it's during a regular baseball week or like when there wasn't much going on, yeah, I think they just a combination of things. But
interesting
good job
point
by them.
The Lynx did take the high road on that. The comments that they released,
and they should. They're a class act organization. They always are, and they always will be.
So the Lynx won this afternoon in Dallas in overtime. They've only got 2 more games left. That'll be here at home, and then they have just over a month off due to the Olympic break. Yeah. Do you think that that's going to help them or hurt them? This Olympic break, it just seems. I mean, it's like a month and 4 days. It feels like it's going to take forever.
Yeah, I think it'll help them. I think some of the players that aren't playing in it will kind of get a chance to kind of reset and take a break from, there were so many expectations for them. I think that they're too good of a team that I think they'll come back re-energized, and good for them. They've got Maya Moore is one of the greatest basketball players in the world, and Lindsay and all of them. Whalen. Yeah, they're all great. I think the break will be fine. I think they'll come back sometimes. Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on to the Timberwolves, the Summer League in Las Vegas. They won again today. They're making it to the finals. They were, the 24th seed?
Literally, everybody has said they're the Cinderella story. Yeah. They are the last seed, and I hate to admit it, but I took a picture of it at my house watching the Summer League, and my buddies are like, what? You're watching Summer League back? Yeah, I am, because
the All-Star week, you had nothing to do.
Correct. Chris Dunn for the first 2 games was great, and then after that it was, he's been hurt and hasn't played, I don't think, since the second or third game.
That's my next question. Right. The concussion, is this something that we need to be concerned about? Or do you think they're making the right move now? I mean, it's only the Summer League, so not pushing to get him back. I think that's the right play. Yeah. Let him be healthy. He's a rookie. Give him some time. He'll bounce back.
It's a 100% meaningless game. I mean, if they win it, great.
We're talking about it, so it's not that.
Yeah, but I just think in the big picture of it that and I'm sure Thibodeau somewhere is going, he's not playing.
Sure, sit him out.
Then he's not playing. Sure. Then you got to listen to the head coach. I mean, the head coach is there, and if the head coach says not to play him, then he's not going to play.
All right, so staying with that Summer League, the stats, we were talking guards. Where does this fit in? Tyus Jones is having a really good summer season, averaging almost 18 points per game, 6 assists per game, 4 rebounds. Do you think that there's going to be a spot? He didn't get a whole lot of clock last year, and now they've added Brandon Rush. Do you think that he's going to get some clock after this Summer League performance, or do you think that it's just going to fall away and this is pretty meaningless?
Well, I don't know, because I think it's kind of meaningless. I love Tyus Jones, great guy, great Minnesotan. We love that about people. I think it's kind of meaningless because you remember last year with the eventual Rookie of the Year in Karl Anthony Towns, they were a horrible Summer League team. They always seem to be a bad Summer League team. I don't know. I think it's weird because might they move him? I mean, if they get rid of Rubio, they'll have to keep him. I think Tyus just needed, if he'd gone back for another year at Duke, maybe he would have been a higher pick this year.
A little more polished.
Right, and been in the Summer League anyway, maybe been a top 15 pick as opposed to a top 25 pick, because I think he was like the 24th pick.
You know the draft better than I do. So.
I don't know, but I think he'll play. I just don't know how much, because as you said, they've gotten more depth, but you can never have enough depth at point guard.
All right. The other free agents that the Timberwolves have grabbed so far, Cole Aldrich, he's another local boy that people love. Jordan Hill, not a whole lot of great stats. He's kind of been a little bit of a journeyman.
Yeah.
And then Brandon Rush to be that shooting guard. Do you like the moves so far, or do they need to do something? Should they have made a bigger splash somewhere?
Well, we all heard when all this was going on about the Tundra tax, how they were going to have to get some of these guys to pay some of these guys more, Gasol and these other guys to show up here. None of them did. Cole Aldrich is a good piece. He's a journeyman. I think he's played on like 5 or 6 teams. Brandon Rush is all right. He didn't really play much last year.
We had said that he was with Golden State, so he's sitting on the bench behind Steph Curry.
Yeah,
he's not going to get a ton of time.
And maybe people just got too excited with this Wolves team because they were like, well, we're going to do this, this, and this. We got Thibodeau. Everybody's going to want to play with him.
Sure.
I think a lot of people are now going, well, wait, they didn't do much. Well, they're not going to get Kevin Durant. They're not going to get, Russell Westbrook. I would wait a year and maybe they'll get more, but somebody said today, I think it was John Barry on the broadcast, that they're a possible 45-win team.
Wow. Where do you think that puts us playoff-wise in the West?
The A
45?
seed, and we would take
the
the A seed as a Minnesota. I mean, the one thing about the Wolves is when they're rocking, it's fun to go down to the Target Center. And this is a basketball town. They've just been awful for 10 years.
I don't know. It's a hockey state, so.
But when they're good, people go. I mean, granted,
right.
When Kevin Garnett came back, that place was unbelievable, and they had 11 wins. People care if it's a good product. Not that that's a good product, but you get the right things going, you're all good.
All right. Well, we might talk a little Kevin Garnett here in the next segment too, if we have enough time.
I'm in.
As you can see, the next segment that's up, we've got a little bit of Drankson to do possibly, and before the show ends, we're going to pay some respects to somebody who means a lot here to both of us, especially to Sauce. MeatSauce and Monty, time for us to take a time out. Time to nerd this bad boy up.
We're not going to talk Star Wars.
No Star Wars. Star Trek, no. Oh. All right. Like I said, we like to nerd things up here every once in a while, so we're going to play what we call the drinking game. We know that Sunday night's a sports show. People are probably sitting at home winding down their weekend, maybe have a beer in hand. MeatSauce and I have our red Solo cups. Nobody knows what's in them except for Todd. Our boss Todd knows what's in here.
Yeah, what a Todd.
He's the best Todd I know.
You say that for yourself.
So in this drinking game, we're just going to sit and very leisurely chat back and forth about some topics.
Sweet.
Entertainment, a little bit of that stuff in here. We're going to start off with the Pokemon Go. More than 21 million. See, you need the two-shot here. What's your take on Pokemon Go?
First off, grow up, Peter Pan. Second off, we were playing it. AJ Mansour, who I love to death, plays it all the time. So on Friday, we were over at one of my friend's house, and he shows it to Mark Parrish, and he's like, hey, check this out. Mark Parrish disappears for like 45 minutes.
They really played it?
Into Corey's neighborhood somewhere.
Just walking around.
Yeah, it's grow up. I don't get it. I mean, maybe I need something to get me out of the house so I don't start looking like Bluto and Barney at a kid.
Take your dogs for a walk. It'll be fine.
That's a lot of work. But I don't get it. AJ plays it everywhere. On my way here tonight, there are people riding bikes like this, playing it.
Yeah,
like
won't cause an accident at all.
You're gonna get hit by a car or in trouble. I don't get it, but I think it's a new wave of things, and to get people out. And the one thing that I've said about it, just think you have kids. Think if this were going on during school.
Oh.
Think if this had come out in the middle of October. They'd have a huge
Kids on the playground
issue.
would not be playing. They'd be walking around with their phones
right.
looking
They'd
for
have a
Pokemon.
huge issue.
All right. It's got more people than Twitter.
This is spicy.
Spicy. All right, let's move on for Pokemon Go. The Mini NES, it's the classic for those of us around in the 80s and early 90s. Nintendo was awesome. It still is awesome if you've got one sitting around in the basement or the attic. If it still works, fantastic. The Mini NES, it's coming out this November, $60. Are you going to buy one this holiday season?
No, and I'll tell you why.
Oh.
Because, and I don't know if it'll work, because I think, and maybe this is just Nintendo being smarter than I am, Nintendo needs to come out with an app where you can literally buy games like you do music, where you could buy Excitebike, you could buy Donkey Kong.
I think they already have that.
I think they should do that. If they haven't, because I don't have that. So that means that it doesn't exist if I don't have it. But every year, my wife and I, for Christmas shopping, go to the Mall of America, and there's a store there that sells a preloaded Sega. I don't know why I'm talking with my hands, but I always,
Italian all of a sudden.
I'm like, babe, I want that, and she's like, you're 34, you're not getting that, but it's like preloaded
You have,
Sega
to,
games.
you have to ask her what you can buy. You can't.
Well,
you're digging
said,
yourself a
that's
hole
what
here.
I said. I want Santa to bring me, and Santa never brings me the Sega. Point is, I think it's
You
the
still
same
believe
one
in
every
Santa,
year
don't you?
because there's dust on it. I think it's the same one. I don't think this will work.
I think it's
just
going to
don't.
work, and here's why. The games that are loaded on there, I would pay $20 already for like Dr. Mario, Mario
Yeah,
3.
Dr. Mario
It's got the
kinda wails.
Zeldas. If you went, if honestly, there used to be a place called like the Cauldron, and they had all these old Nintendo games.
The what?
The Cauldron. It was right here in Roseville,
Sounds like
I
the
believe.
basement in Silence of the Lambs. Where are you hanging out?
This
The
was a long time
Cauldron?
ago, but the place, maybe they still exist.
Creep.
I don't know. You could buy Nintendo games for like $10 or $12, and they would, like the Super Tecmo Bowl one, I think was still drawing $40.
Oh, yeah,
and I haven't looked at it
there's-
on eBay, but
Yeah.
these games still get money. So Nintendo
Yeah.
for $60, it feels like a steal to get 30 games.
Yeah, I mean, if I wouldn't buy it, but if somebody bought it, I would go and play it.
I'm buying it so you can come over and play anytime.
I'm in.
November 11th, we're doing it.
Why that date?
A little bit more pop
your
culture.
birthday?
No, there's not much going on in fall, November 11th. I don't know, maybe we'll do Thanksgiving, we'll play.
I may need to go to your house for Thanksgiving this year.
All right. I'm not going to touch that.
I might get fired.
All right, movies, Ghostbusters. It's gotten a ton of play. People hated it on the YouTube trailers, all this stuff. It was released this weekend, number 2 at the box office. They only made $46 million. Secret Life of Pets, $50.6 million. What do you think this means to the Ghostbusters franchise that in its debut, number 2?
That's an absolute bomb. I mean, that's
Agreed.
a bomb of a movie, and we heard that. As you said, everybody hated it on YouTube. Man, we're talking about Ghostbusters, right?
Yes.
I just pulled a total meat sauce move and was like, wait a minute, what are we talking
What
about?
movie are we talking
Ghostbusters. You knew, and it sucks because all 4 of those women are funny.
Right.
And it sucks that it had to happen to them, but I don't know. The second one wasn't very good. This one didn't look good. The second the trailer came out, it looked way too cheesy. I don't know. That's a big step back. I can't believe it got beat. I thought that was an $80 to $100 million movie.
People were already starting to downplay and say maybe it'll hit 50, and now it comes through just 46.
Hideous.
We got one more minute left for our drinking game here. Deflategate. Tom Brady says he's done, but the Players Association is saying they might appeal this. How ridiculous is this that they could go to the Supreme Court to talk about underinflated footballs that are only costing one player 4 games to sit out?
Somebody said that if it goes to the Supreme Court, it'll just like that. It'll
It's
be
done.
Because
The Supreme Court's probably not even going to
Don't
sit. They'll
waste
just
our
say, "Get out of
time
here."
with
Right.
that. I don't know. This has just gone on forever. They cheated. They've cheated since Spygate. They cheat. They're just a crappy team. I mean, they're good, but they're shysters and the stuff that they pull off. I'm tired of them. I'm tired of hearing about
Tired
Tom
of the
Brady.
storyline.
Yeah, I hope they go 0-4 without him. I literally do.
Good job on drinking. I like that.
Thanks.
All right, coming back, we're going to honor somebody, the Dark Man. Coming back, MeatSauce Monty. Welcome back to MeatSauce and Monty. The reason I want to honor Dark Star in our very first broadcast is because we met the weekend that he had passed away.
Yeah.
You were a guest at my old station, and I got a chance to meet you. And I ran down there like a fanboy to meet you, and I saw you sitting on a set similar like this, telling stories about Dark. You didn't just take off, oh, the cameras are off, the show's over, get me out of here. And we got a chance to chat. And then we did our Vikings show, and now we've got this show. And what I think is so amazing is we are standing literally feet away from where Dark Star did the sports show with Mike Max and the crew. We're in the same studio. The set is right there. His jersey is still hanging right there. I just wanted to give you the chance to say what Dark meant to you.
Dark Star was one of those guys that was one of the first people to like really, really believe in me outside of like my family and stuff. But I'll never forget when I found out that he died. I thought it was, and this is cruel, but I thought it was like a joke.
Yeah.
But I love Dark. Dark's one of the greatest human beings, and he'd be sitting right there yelling at me.
He'd be here.
He'd love my new hair.
Thanks for watching the first show.
Deuces.